Welcome to Miss Retro Reads. We're continuing with The Head Girl of the Chalet School. Chapter 12. The Robin is Lost. Girls, have you seen the robin? The prefect looked up as Miss Maynard came into their room, this question on her lips. But no, madame, said Vanna. I have not seen her all day. Nor I, added Rosalie. When did anyone last see her? Nobody seems to know, replied the mistress with a worried look. Amy says she went off for her afternoon nap as usual, and Clara saw she was tucked up. Since then, no one knows anything about her. Is she with Joey? Asked Grizel. Joe has been working all afternoon and knows nothing about her. She was never missed till half an hour ago. Girls, are you sure you haven't seen her anywhere? They shook their heads. We had German literature at 2, said Grizel, and at 3 we came up here. I had my lesson with Herr Insrel at 1:30, but I saw nothing of her then. Well, it's very mysterious, said Miss Maynard. Where can she have got to? Could she have gone to talk to Louise? Suggested Gertrude. She is very fond of her, and Louise loves our baby. That's an idea. She may be in the kitchen. I'll run down and see, shall I? Proposed Mary, getting to her feet. I won't be a second, Miss Maynard. She tore off downstairs, but returned to say that Louise had seen nothing of the robin that day. And please, Miss Maynard, she thinks she may be in the shed with Rufus. Rufus had come back from the Sanalp with his mistress, who had declared that she simply must have him with her for the rest of the term, as there were only 5 weeks left. Madge had agreed, and the big dog had been duly installed in the shed when the girls came down with him. Miss Maynard promptly went off to see if she could find Robin there, and the prefects returned to their various pursuits without thinking any more about it. It was something of a shock to them, therefore, when the mistress returned 10 minutes later to say that only Joey was with the big dog, and she had declared that Robin had not been there when she had come. The seniors dropped their work, and at once Grizel began an organized search party and sent them over to La Petite Chalet, forming another with which she hunted through the chalet till there was not a hole nor a corner which they had not investigated. It was all in vain. The robin had vanished. It's as strange as it was the day that you and Eugene rescued Rufus, Joey, said Simone, referring to one of Joe's exploits of 2 years before. We couldn't find you then, and we can't find the robin now. At the reminder, Joe had rushed out of the room. Where has she gone? Demanded Marie von Ecknew. They were answered by the return of Joe, leading Rufus and Grizel behind her. Rufus can track her, cried his owner. He helped me to find Elisaveta in the summer, and this is show time. St. Bernards are always able to do things in the snow. Hang on to him, someone, while Grizel and I get our coats. Evandine obligingly caught the dog's harness, and the pair vanished, to reappear wearing their outdoor things, while Grizel had the robins rolled up into a bundle under her arm. Joe was waving a vacuum flask, which Louise had filled with hot coffee, and they looked well equipped for their expedition. There was no staff to stop them, for all the staff were busy hunting through the grounds in case the little girl had got lost there. Grizel gave her orders. Gertrude, go over and tell Clara to have the robin's bed warmed for her. Rosalie, see that there is a hot bath ready, and Vanna and Luigia, you might go and look after the babies. Dira, you and Mary must see to the middles. Ava, go and tell Mademoiselle that we have gone with Rufus to see if we can track her. Ask Maddie to ring up the Sanalp and ask if Dr. Jem can come down without alarming Madame. The rest of you, for any sake, be good. There's enough trouble as it is. Come on, Joe. They dashed off, and presently the girl saw them at the gate of the fence, showing the dog something small, which Evandine pronounced to be one of Robin's gloves. Evidently Rufus found the scent at once, for he dashed forward at a pace that made the girls pant breathlessly after him. Joe had hold of his chain, but he towed her along, Grizel running hard to keep up with them. Right round the fence he led them and up the pine woods that covered the slopes of the barren Bald Alp. There he began to lead them through the trees, keeping far from the path which they usually followed. Help! Thought Grizel. How on earth has she gotten this far? On went Rufus, never slackening his pace for a moment, and on went the girls. They were now reaching the part of the mountain that they did not know. How the robin's baby feet had carried their owner this distance was a question neither Grizel nor Joe had settled. Just as both of them were beginning to feel that they could go no longer, and Joey was starting to get a stitch in her side, the dog suddenly stopped, circled round restlessly once or twice, and then, sitting down on his haunches, threw up his nose and bayed loudly. The melancholy sound nearly finished Joe, who was tired, and Grizel felt suddenly helpless and despairing. "What has happened to her?" cried the head girl. "Oh, Rufus, do stop that awful noise. Make him dry up, Joey." Joey put her arms round his neck and kissed him on his cold nose. Then she turned to Grizel. "Grizel, where has she gone to? Do you think Rufus means that she's buried in the snow?" "Nonsense! How could she be? It's as hard as iron." Grizel stamped on the ground to give emphasis to her words, and the ring sound of her nail-studded boots on the frozen snow gave point to her rejoinder. "Then what has happened?" "Someone may have found her and carried her," suggested Grizel. "But who?" "That's more than I can tell you. I didn't think anyone came here. It's supposed to be haunted, you know. Look up here, Joe. Suppose we go on a little farther and try him again. He might be able to pick up the scent. I don't think she's been carried off. If that's what you're thinking, there's no one. What's that?" Joe turned and looked fearfully in the direction in which she was pointing. What she expected to see, neither she nor anyone else could have told at the moment. What she actually did see was a deep cleft in the rock wall not far from where they were standing, and asleep in it was a strange old man with long white beard and hair. And in his arms, warmly wrapped up in an old deerskin, was the robin. Both recognized her black curls at once, and both made for the group immediately. Rufus followed them, barking. The noise woke the strange bedfellows, and the robin sat up, holding out her arms to the girls, while the man lay where he was, gazing at them with wild blue eyes, in which there was something which Grizel mentally described as uncanny. Joe had caught the baby to her. "Little beloved, how could you run away like this and leave us? Are you cold?" "But no, Joey, I am very warm," replied the robin, rubbing her curls well into Joe's mouth as she snuggled up to her. "This gentleman, Herr Arnolfi, he is, and he has kept me warm. He was taking me to see where the fairies live, and we got tired, so we sat down to rest." Grizel turned to the old man, seeing that Joey was too busy hugging the fond lamb to trouble with him. "Why did you take her off?" she demanded in German. He chuckled in a meaningless manner, rising slowly to his feet. "It is the Queen of the Fairies, my little lady. I was but taking her back to her own realm." With a little gasp of horror, Grizel realized that they were dealing with a madman. He might be harmless, but none the less he was insane. If he chose to resist them, they were only two girls, and she had read stories which told her of the strength of insanity. Somehow they must get the baby home without frightening her. Choosing her words carefully, she answered, "It is a wrong time of year, Herr Arnolfi. Now the fairies are all asleep till the spring shall come. Then she may go back. But now she would be alone without attendants to wait on her. You would not be so cruel as to condemn a queen to that, would you? He looked at her, a madman's cunning in his eyes, and wandered restlessly over them. How do I know that you mortals will let her go? I am the fairy folk myself. Give me the little queen, and I will be her faithful attendant until the spring shall come. But it is not fitting that she should go thus, persisted Grizel, all her wits bent on getting them away before his insane anger should break out. She's not robed as befits a queen, neither has she jewels. In English she added, Joey, get her wrapped up and away. Put her on Rufus's back. Joe at once lifted the child on the back of the great dog, who was well able to take the light weight and had often acted the part of horse before. But she made no attempt to move. She had grasped what was the matter, and she had no intention of leaving Grizel to face the maniac by herself. The robin, not realizing, simply took the dog's fur in her hands, prepared for a merry ride on his back. Get off with her, said Grizel urgently. Quick, Joey. And leave you to this lunatic? It's likely, isn't it? Remarked Joe scornfully. Then tie her on and send Rufus home. He can carry her easily. But get her away. Joey obeyed promptly, tying the robin as well as she could with gym girdle and scarf. Hold tight, darling, she murmured. Tell them to let Rufus bring them here when you get home. The lunatic had watched their movements with increasing suspicion. Now he turned to Grizel. The queen has her steed, but you must go. It is not fitting that mortals should behold the court of the fairies. Go, I tell you, go. He was plainly becoming excited. Grizel nodded to Joe, who guessed what it meant. Flinging out her arm in the direction in which they had come, the younger girl cried, Home, Rufus, home, boy. The gallant animal at once set off, loping along easily. As he sped off, the madman gave vent to such an unearthly yell as terrified the two girls left behind, and he made off after the great dog, tearing over the snow with gigantic bounds that it seemed must bring him up to Rufus in no time. But Rufus was alarmed, and he quickened his pace, and Robin clung with terrified grip to him. Come on, Joe, shrieked Grizel, catching Joey's hand. Run! They set off at their best pace, running down the slope away from the cleft. The lunatic was still pursuing Rufus and his precious burden, but even this insane strength was running out, and already he was losing ground. Grizel realized that as soon as he saw this, he would probably make for them, to wreak his vengeance on them, and she made no attempt to follow the dog's tracks. Instead, she ran steadily out from them, trusting that the slope of the valley would bring them to some well-known path sooner or later. As for Jo, she couldn't even think. She simply ran blindly on, clinging to Grizel in a blind faith which was their salvation. For had she known that they were not following Rufus, the chances are that she would have argued the point. As it was, they tore on, breathless, terrified, and well-nigh blind with fear. Finally, Jo tripped up over a buried tree trunk and fell headlong, dragging Grizel after her. They were up in a moment and dashing on with bursting lungs, but the fall had broken their headlong flight, and in less than 3 minutes they knew that they could not go on. Their run fell to a walk, and finally Joey sank down on the ground, her hand at her side, where the cruel stitch was catching, and fighting for breath. Grizel was not in a much better state, but she was able to realize that they must not stay there. The cold was cruel, and already the stars were beginning to show in the sky, and they had no means as yet of knowing where they were. The head girl bent and pulled Jo to her feet. Come on, Joey. We can't stop here. Hang on to me, and I'll haul you along. I can't, gasped Jo. Grizel, I can't. Let me alone, let me alone. But Grizel persisted. In spite of her own weariness, she managed to drag Jo along with her, though it was a slow progress, and she was terrified in case they were going round in circles and should come up with the old man again. Joey was becoming a dead weight and was ceasing to protest against being made to walk. Grizel knew that she herself could not go on much longer, and she shuddered inwardly as she thought of what might happen if they had to go much further. Mercifully, help was nearer at hand than she had supposed. Just as she was beginning to decide that she could not move another foot, the sound of voices came to them from amongst the trees, and there were lights to be seen moving in their direction. With a final effort, the head girl let go her hold of Joey and called as loudly as she could, and then she too sank down on the ground, utterly exhausted. 3 men who had come over the great Tiern Pass from Germany found them there 2 minutes later and had to carry them to Lauterbach, the little hamlet at the Austrian end of the pass. Neither of them recovered consciousness till they were safely in one of the chalets, where the rescuers dosed them with brandy to bring them to. It was some time before they could recover their wits sufficiently to say where they came from, and by that time the chalet people, led by Dr. Jim and Rufus, had succeeded in tracking them to the hamlet. Both were so completely done that they had to stay where they were for the night, and when they were brought home next day, they were put straight to bed and kept there. Joey was in the worst state. Grizel was as strong as a young pony, and, except for a stiffness which soon wore off, she recovered from her fright and exertion rapidly. Joe, on the other hand, was so worn out that it was decided to separate her from everyone, and she was taken to her sister's bedroom, where she stayed for 10 days, finally coming downstairs looking white and big-eyed, and inclined to be easily upset. Of the 3, the Robin came off best. She had been frightened by the old man's chasing of her and Rufus, but they had soon got away from him, and they had not gone far before meeting the search party from the chalet, which had set out as soon as Eva had given Mademoiselle Grizel's message. It had been by accident that they had gone in that direction at all, but the baby was quickly taken from her perch and carried home to Miss Durrant's arms. Her story, when they got it from her, was that she had finished her afternoon nap and had got up, dressed herself, and gone out into the playing field, as she was permitted to do on fine days. She had been running along by the fence when the old man had suddenly appeared at the other side and had called to her and told her to come with him, for he would take her to Fairyland. She had never thought of its being naughty, but had gone off quite happily, and he had been very good to her. When she had grown tired, he had offered to carry her, but she had refused, for she wanted to be a real schoolgirl, and she was a brownie anyway, and brownies don't fuss over trifles. At last, when they had reached the cleft, he had picked her up and told her that now he was going to take her through to Fairyland, where she would be a queen. Only he was tired and must rest, so he had sat down and taken her in his arms. The next thing she knew, Joey and Grizel and Rufus were there, and then they had put her on Rufus's back and sent him home with her, and the old man had been very angry. He had run after them, but Rufus had run faster, and then Miss Maynard and Miss Durrant and Miss Wilson had come, and Miss Durrant had carried her home, and she was sorry. Please, would they forgive her? "You were very naughty, my child," said Mademoiselle. "You are not permitted to leave the school by yourself. Poor Joey and Grizel had a terrible time, and now they are ill in bed because you were so naughty." The Robin wept bitterly. She adored Joey, who was her ideal in everything, and she was not allowed to go near her beloved. Grizel, too, had been very kind to her. They could have inflicted no worse punishment on her than she had brought on herself, and after a little more talk, Mademoiselle consented to forgive her and kissed her. However, that escapade of Robin's was to have much further reaching results than they yet realized. But after Grizel had been gently told that she should never have gone off as she did, Nothing more was said. In Joe's case, scolding had to be put on one side. Her nerves had received a severe shock, and she was not herself all the rest of the term. As for the old man, he had vanished as completely as if he had never existed. If it had not been that all three girls told the same story and told it independently, those in authority would have decided that he had been a figment of the imagination. Chapter 13. The Holidays. The rest of that term passed quietly and quickly. The girls busied themselves with their preparations for the sale, and Joey managed to content herself with her fretwork. She remained very quiet and was still easily upset, even when the end of the term came, so that the staff were thankful that in a few days she would be safely in her sister's care. Rufus, who had proved himself such a hero, was well on the way to being spoiled, for everyone petted him, and he was rewarded with tidbits dear to his doggish heart, and some of the middles nearly came to blows over the question of who was to look after him while his mistress was absent from him. It was finally settled by the prefects themselves, who undertook to see to his grooming and baths, and so saved the school from what looked like some promising feuds. For goodness sake, try to behave as though you were middles and not juniors, said Grizel, whose first act on leaving the sick room had been to settle all of these affairs. None of you will have anything to do with him, because we will do all he needs. The sale was a huge success. By the time the girls had laid out all they had made themselves, and added to it all the contributions from other people, they found that they had enough for 2 needlework stalls, 1 handiwork stall, a sweet stall, a toy stall, and the little one's lucky dip. When it was all over, they counted their takings, and there was wild rejoicing when they found that they made enough to keep one of the free beds filled for a whole year. I vote we do this every year, said Grizel as she locked her cash box. Then it could be the Chalet school bed, and Dr. Jim would always feel sure of that anyway. Good idea, said Mary. I vote we do it. What do you think? All the others agreed, and Grizel was made to sit down then and there to write to Dr. Jim, telling him what they intended doing. The result of this was that when Grizel, Joey, and the Robin put in an appearance at the St. on the first day of their holidays, they were escorted ceremoniously to the sanatorium and taken to the big free ward for children. There were no patients there yet, though some would be arriving shortly. It was a sunny room with picture flowers and a glorious view from the windows. But the girls paid no heed to all this. One thing only caught their eyes. The middle cot had a brass plate over it, and on this was engraved the Chalet school bed. "Jem, you ripper!" gasped Joe. "Oh, how decent of you to get it done before we came up." "It's wonderful," said Grizel. "Ever so nice, Dr. Jem." "I like the shiny thing," remarked the Robin gravely. "Why has it our name up, Uncle Jem?" They explained it to her carefully, and she listened with beaming face. When they had finished, she heaved a deep sigh. "I will save all my shillings," she said. Dr. Jem stooped and kissed her. "You are a darling," he said. The Robin kissed him back, and they turned to Mrs. Russell. "Will it please you, Tante Guito?" "Very much, my pet." The next few days were spent in taking walks in the neighborhood, but they soon exhausted all the possibilities, and by the time they had climbed the mountain twice, they were ready for something fresh. "That's the only drawback to here," said Grizel, as they sat in the salon after a café one day. "There aren't many places you can go to, and now it's thawing. The whole place is ankle-deep in mud. This is the second time today I've had to change my stockings." "Well, I had to change every solitary thing," declared Jo between 2 bites of her sandwich. "You'll have fits when you see my laundry, Madge." Madge Russell laughed. I don't doubt it for one moment. If there is any mud you can get into, you seem to make for it headlong. I never knew anyone like you before, Joe. You're worse than Dick used to be. Has the Indian mail come today? Asked Jem. Yes, but I haven't opened it yet. It's a thick package this time, so I expect Molly managed to get time to put in a decent letter for once, said his wife as she produced the letter from her twin brother, who was in the forest service in Deccan. Yes, there's something from her. Goodness, ejaculated Joe. Read us what she says, Madge. Madge nodded and began. Dear people, it is such ages since I wrote you a decent letter, and I thought I'd take this opportunity while Mother is with us and looking after the twins and baby, to let you know what we are doing. I should say, what we are going to do, I suppose, because this is to warn you that we are coming home in June and hope to be with you in August. Dick gets leave early in May, and it's 6 months, furlough this time. We are coming straight to you, so I hope you can have us. If you can't, we'll go to one of the hotels by the lakeside. If you're not all dying to see your nephew and nieces, you ought to be. Rix and Peggy are imps of wickedness. Where they get it from, I can't imagine. Not from me, that's certain. I suppose it must be Joe, for Dick says you were never as sinful as our twins are. As for Babs, she's still at the stage when she sleeps most of the time, and is a good little thing. She is like Dick, the image of him, I think. He, of course, says he doesn't know where I see it. The first time I told him he had the cheek to go off to the nearest mirror and examine himself carefully, murmuring all the time, I may be plain, but I'm not as bad as all that. As I told him, he doesn't deserve a daughter at all. Rix is like that photo of Madge she sent us on our wedding day. Peggy is dark like me, and Dick says, like Joey, too. Can you picture them, my children? Dick and me with 3 kiddies. Of course, Babs is only 3 weeks old yet, but still it does make us seem old. After all, the twins are 13 months now. They can walk and talk, though a lot of their conversation is absolutely unintelligible. Babs is to be christened next Sunday. We are going to call her Mary, after me, and Bridget after my little sister, who died before I was born. I suppose she will be Biddy as soon as she is old enough for a name. That won't be for ages yet. What is happening at school? Have you had any more excitement this term? I'm longing to see it and get to know all the girls. You've written so much about them that I feel as if I know them all. We want to stay till term begins again. I suppose you'll have broken up by the time we arrive. Still, I shall hope to see the Robin and Juliet and Griselle, if she hasn't left you by then. Babs is howling for me, so I will be fetching her. Therefore, my dear relations, I must wind up this epistle. You can't say I haven't done you proud this time. Much love to all from Molly. Isn't she a sport? Said Joe enthusiastically. Fancy me with 3 nieces and a nephew. You've only 1 nephew and 2 nieces, Griselle pointed out to her. Oh, well, you know what I mean. What does Dick say, Madge? Mainly full of his furlough, replied her sister. I'm glad they're coming. I've been wanting to know Molly ever since I first heard of her. From her letters she seems a dear. Also, I am longing to see the babies. How nice of Rix to be like me. He must be a discerning youth, laughed the doctor, with an admiring glance at his charming wife. Molly will have her hands full with those 3 kiddies. Oh, she'll have an eye for them, said Madge easily. Well, what are we going to do with ourselves now? Let's play at something, suggested Joey. The Robin will have to go to bed soon. There are yet 2 hours, protested the Robin. Well, 2 hours goes jolly fast when it's near bedtime, declared Joey. What would you like to play at? Walking up the hillside, decided the Robin. Oh, here comes Papa. She ran to meet her father, who picked her up and came into the room with her on his shoulder. He was smiling as he came, and Joey thought not for the first time that Uncle Ted was a dear when he looked like that. I've some news for you all, he said as he sat down, transferring his little daughter to his knee. You may have 3 guesses among you. An expedition tomorrow, said Joe instantly. That's right as far as it goes, but you must get nearer than that, Joey. We are going to Salzburg, said Grizel instantly. It was a long-desired trip, and had been promised to them for some time. Clever girl, yes. I saw the Lannises today, and Mr. Lannis has to go over on business. He offers to take you 3 and Mrs. Russell if she can come. The children may go, replied Madge. I'm afraid I can't. Oh, Madge, why not? Joe's voice was full of disappointment. I'm sorry, Joe, but I haven't the time. What arrangements did you make with Mrs. What arrangements did you make with Mr. Lannis, Captain Humphreys? I said we would ring them up and let them know, replied the captain. He's going by car and is taking Evandine. If the children may go, he will meet us at the foot of the mountain at 9 o'clock. They must bring things for the night, as he thinks it is too far to go and come in one day, and his business may take a little time. Mrs. Lannis is not going, but her French maid will be there, so that the girls won't be alone while he is at his meeting. He hoped you would go, Mrs. Russell, but if you couldn't, he says Suzette is quite capable of looking after them. They will, of course, promise to do as she says. He glanced down at his own little girl, who nodded her curly head. Me, I will be very good, Papa. I will do as Suzette tells me. And the others? He looked across at Joey and Grizel. Oh, rather, said Joe. I'll be an angel without wings if you let me go, Madge. Madge laughed. If you are, it'll be the first time, and I cannot imagine you being angelic on any occasion, Joe. Still, I feel sure you will do as you are told, and not give Mr. Lannis any trouble. I'll look after them, promised Grizel, and Madge was satisfied. She knew that if Grizel kept the other 2 out of mischief, she would necessarily keep out of mischief herself. So it was arranged, and as soon as Captain Humphreys had had his coffee, he went off to ring up the hotel where the Lannises were staying and let them know that the girls would come. As for those young ladies themselves, they rushed upstairs to pack a small case with their belongings as soon as the meal was over. Madge followed to suggest early bed, since they would have to be up by 5 the next morning, and would have a full day. She drew Grizel to one side while the other 2 were joyfully arguing about their trip. Grizel, I want you to promise me that you will try to see that the Robin is in bed by 8 o'clock at least. I know that Evandine sits up to all hours at night, and I expect you and Joe will not get off before 10, but the Robin must go as near as usual time as possible. It won't hurt Joe to sit up for once, and of course you are much older, and 10 is not too late in holiday time when you are not working, and can sleep later the next morning, but the Robin would be worn out for the rest of the week if it were permitted her. Will you see to it, dear? Grizel nodded. Yes, of course I will, madame. I'm sorry to burden you with all this responsibility, Grizel, but after all, if I can't trust my head girl, whom can I trust? I'll do my honest best, promised Grizel, a little more color than usual touching her pretty face. I can't do more. Then I can let you all go happily, said her head with a smile. You are a great comfort to me, Grizel. I feel I can trust you with them anywhere. The commendation was deserved, and for that term had shown that Grizel, when she put her mind to it, could be as trustworthy and as steady as ever Grizel or Juliet had been. Joe had taken good care that everyone should know how the head girl had tried to send her off with Robin, and face the maniac alone, and it had been Grizel's doing that they had got off as they had. Madge felt that the turning point in the girl's career had come when they had resolved to give her one more chance, and was glad that she had done so. And though she had a good many qualms at first, she was proud of Grizel now. There was no chance of saying anything more, for Joey and the robin came racing up at that minute to demand if it was really necessary to take an extra pair of stockings, as Marie, who had come to help them, insisted. "It'll be such a bore carrying all that along," said Joe. "Well, if you don't take the stockings, it will mean that you'll have to stay at the hotel if you get your feet wet. Of course, if you like that idea, you can leave the extra pair behind, but you may please yourself about it." Eventually, the stockings went in, though it entailed 20 minutes spent with a darning needle, which had been her reason for objecting. Jo loathed mending, but she had no intention of spending the precious hours in Salzburg shut up in a hotel. And we will continue this book next Wednesday. And as I said before, I won't be reading on Fridays and Saturdays anymore, but I will be reading Sundays. So listen for a religious book on Sundays. And thanks for listening to Miss Retro Reads.